Welcome to this class with the heading Prime Minister and Council of Ministers. In this short video, we will talk about the Prime Minister and his Council of Ministry. Prime Minister is the most important political institution in the country. He is appointed as the Prime Minister by the President of our country. The President appoints the leader of the majority party or the coalition of parties that commands the majority in Lok Sabha as the Prime Minister. In case if no single party or alliance get the absolute majority to form the government, then the Prime Minister appoints the person most likely to secure a majority support. The Prime Minister does not have a fixed time period or tenure. He continues in power so long as he remains the leader of the majority party or coalition government. The Prime Minister chairs the cabinet meeting. As I told you, he is the head of the government. So he presides all the cabinet meetings. In the beginning of the chapter, we had seen in case of implementation of the Mandal Commission's report. He calls the cabinet meeting. Then he coordinates the work of different departments and ministries. His decisions are final in case disagreement arises between departments. अगर कभी किसी दो मिनिस्ट्री के बीच में कोई डिसएग्रीमेंट हो जाता है या डिफरेंसेस आ जाते हैं, then his decisions are the final decisions. He exercises general supervision of different ministries. All ministers work under his leadership. The Prime Minister distribute and redistribute work to the minister. It means it depends on Prime Minister wish ki to whom to give which department to which leader. And if the leader is not working according to his wishes, he can take or dismiss the minister from that ministry and redistribute to someone else. When the Prime Minister quits, the entire ministry quits. Thus, if the cabinet is the most important institution in India, within the cabinet, who is the most important? Obviously, the Prime Minister is the most important. Coalition government imposed some constraint on the power of Prime Minister because if only single party is able to form the government, then Prime Minister is free to take any hard step or decision. But in case of coalition government, because actually in coalition government, if any of the single party is not able to form the government, then they take the support of some others. This taking support is sometimes before election also and sometimes after election also. And the new government which is formed with the support of others, that is known as the coalition government. In that case, the Prime Minister cannot take any decision on its own because he had to pay attention to his coalition partners. उनको दूसरों ओर को भी देखना पड़ता है. Now, different types of Council of Ministry. Council of Ministry is official name for the body that includes all the ministers. It usually has 6 to 80 ministers of different tasks. See, Council of Ministers can go from 60 to 80, and sometimes during the time of Atal Bihari Vajpayee, his ministry goes not only 80, it reaches to 90. That is why many of the opposition leaders were saying during that time कि Atal Bihari Vajpayee has the jumbo jet ministry. The first one, the creamy layer of the Council of Ministers, is actually known as the Cabinet Ministers. Cabinet Ministers are usually the top level minister of the ruling party who are in charge of major ministries. They usually take decisions in the name of the Council of Ministers, and thus you can say that cabinet ministers are actually the inner ring or the core ministry of the Council of Ministers. The number of ministers in cabinet could exceed up to 20 ministers. Sometimes Prime Minister, if he want, then keep it as 16, 17, 18, but not more than 20. Then the ministers of state with independent charge. These leaders or representatives are usually in charge of some smaller ministries. They participate in the cabinet meeting only when they are invited. Means if no one send them the invitation, they are not supposed to attend any of the cabinet meeting. Or you can say this is actually the second level of the Council of Ministers. And some ministers are actually known as the Minister of States. They are attached to and required to assist the cabinet ministers. Or you can say this Minister of States are somewhere giving their help and support and assistance to the cabinet ministers. Since it is not possible for all ministers to meet regularly and discuss everything, that is why the decisions are taken mostly in the cabinet meetings. That is why in the present scenario, the parliamentary democracy in most of the countries is often known as the cabinet form of the government. Suppose if the question is asked why present form of the governments are actually known as the cabinet form of the government, then you have to tell about the Council of Ministers and all the three levels of the ministers: the cabinet ministers, the ministers of state with independent charge, and minister of states. The ministers may have different views and opinions, but everyone has to own up to every decision of the cabinet. भले ही कितने ही differences क्यों ना हो, but for the unity, for the responsibility, because they are actually answerable to the people, they are agree with the cabinet ministers. No ministers can openly criticize any decision of the government. But sometimes, though it is written in the book, but sometimes we see sometimes the leaders from the ruling party also criticize the decision of the government, even if it is about their ministry or department. Every minister has secretaries who are called as civil servants. We had already talked about the civil servants. Then the cabinet is actually acting as a team which is assisted by the cabinet secretariat. This includes many of the senior civil servants who try to coordinate the working of different ministries. Then this is for today, and about the prime minister and his powers, and about the president and the judiciary, the last organ of the government, we will take in the next period.